Oh shit, I don't have a water. Will he be able to do it? Will this be my flu game? It's hard to say. It is hard to say. But today we have 4 rounds of the magazine. Round number 1. A missile exploded in Poland, and there was a litany of reporters, including us kinda, that said it was Russia, but now there's more facts that are out. It might not have been Russia, but still, regardless, fuck Russia. Round number 2, I have a special round that Kate and Cons don't know about. They have no idea what it's about, and these are some of my favorite things that we do on the show. I love to do this to you guys. I have a little bit of a quiz, but not like Jeopardy quiz, a different type of quiz to see. There's no way you're going to get it right. I was way off whenever I was guessing, so it's going to be fun. Round number 3, typically I reserve cold showers for when I'm super horny. You know what I mean. Just super horny, and nobody wants to touch me because I'm that fucking horny with cold water. You know what I mean? But that cold shower, cold shower could also cure your depression, which is...
Okay.
Probably not true. And finally, round number 4, Kate interviews Rebecca Kheel from themilitary.com about a new report on traumatic brain injuries and the effects that they have on troop suicide, among other issues. And there's actually some positive news that's coming out of that report, too.
It was fascinating.
Yeah, and TBI affects, I think, 2 of us on this show. You have TBI, Cons?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just concussions, a couple concussions.
Only 6 concussions.
My brother hit me in the head with a rock in a quarry when I was 5, and so I think maybe some effects from that.
Well, I think that counts for sure.
Okay.
It definitely counts. What also counts is when there's WhistlePig in your cup, because WhistlePig is delicious. If you haven't tried it yet, it's perfect season for it, my friends. Because typically during the summertime, a lot of summertimes I'm by the pool, I'm hanging out, and you don't really... I even think the folks at WhistlePig would be like, hey, a whiskey by the pool is kind of a weird move. But once it starts shifting into fall season, to me, a perfect afternoon on a Saturday, having college football on an outside TV, having a fire pit going, having my smoker going, I'm wearing like just a hoodie, maybe some shorts still. We still have that like in
maybe a shirt
time.
With elbow patches.
I was just going to say elbow patches.
Definitely not for me. When elbow patch barbecue outfit would be a little outrageous. I don't believe in man cards, but I feel like that would have mine taken away for sure. But I love sitting out there by a fire with a little glass of whiskey, especially the rye. If you're going to be sitting by a fire, you need a little bit more spice in your life, and I would go with the rye. But if you like the more sweet side, go with the bourbon, because it's 100 proof as well. It's 100% for all for 100. Piggyback 100% rye and piggyback 100% brew bourbon is 100% the good stuff. Get your bottles at shop.whistlepig.com or at a local retailer. And I want to, even though it's not our podcast, I want to give a shout out to Bustin' and the Boys and KFC Radio. They got to go to WhistlePig and actually make their own style. I wish that we could do it, but
yeah, seriously,
I want to do it. I want to make my own. That's for damn sure. So WhistlePig, I know you're listening. Get us up there.
My wardrobe is perfect for Vermont.
It is.
Or is it New Hampshire?
Yeah.
It's Vermont.
Vermont, right? Yeah, exactly.
Which
I'm
I think is
for Vermont.
and New Hampshire are the same. I think you just
No, you can't, Chaps. If you're from the Northeast, that's not true.
Oh, they're going to get triggered about that.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious. All right, let's get going with round number 1. And before we get started on this, these kind of stories are tough because Nick and I were talking, yesterday the ZBT group chat was talking. So if you're a podcast like Part of My Take, or if you're a podcast like Chicks in the Office, when news comes out about the things that you cover, you just go and talk about it. Tom Brady goes to the Bucks, you're fucking on the news, you're talking about it, you're doing it and doing whatever. Military stuff is a little bit different because I feel like you have a responsibility to give as accurate information as you possibly can.
Because no one's worried, like, Pete Davidson's banging someone new. No one's like, oh no, am I about to get drafted? You know, like,
yeah.
All these women are like, we're going to have to sign up for the Pete Davidson draft. It's our time next. Which
and
I
so
wouldn't
as
mind.
soon as this happens, you see, like, there's a couple accounts that as soon as military news happens, they're on top of it. Just like people that are just like military hobbyists, I guess. It came out, I went and looked at a couple of the different places that I usually look. There's a couple Instagram accounts. I know that sounds silly, but one of them, OIF Nation, does an incredible job in journalism and aggregating different things. I went and saw what the reports were, and I was like, this is a sure thing. Like, that's a fucking crater. Like, at first they said maybe it's a deflection. There was a crater in the ground
in Poland. And to back it up, like, you know, it's a regular day, and then all of a sudden, on our scrolls, because all of us follow military heavy stuff, it's like Poland was bombed. Poland was bombed. Yeah, and it was, I was seeing 3 schools, there was 3 schools of thought.
Oh, wow.
Chaps, not just 2. One, immediately the speculation mill just started flying from verified accounts, from actual news sources, and actual news sources saying different things. One was that Russia just straight up said, fuck 'em, let's go, and bombed Poland, and we were entering World War III. 2 was that Ukraine was trying to intercept Russian missiles, and the collateral damage from that hit Poland. 3 was that Poland and or Ukraine were in cahoots together, bombed themselves, said it was Russia, so that we would get more on their side, which was tinfoil hat, but I saw that too. I saw,
and
like...
I think that was categorically ridiculous.
Yes, absolutely, but I'm just telling you what I saw. These were things that actual, blue check marks
and to that point, what you just said, Chaps, I think in an effort to be first, we don't have the amount of time necessary to take a step back and think through, all right, which of these is actually plausible? Do we really think Russia just threw their hands up and said, screw it, let's just do this thing once and for all? I don't think they're that dumb. I think they're dumb. I don't think they're that dumb. But anyway, continue with the story.
Yeah, so I think basically, just to sum it up before we get into the actual story, this is it's a tough little situation to be in, a tough topic to cover, because if you're wrong, you look like, not only do you look like a fucking idiot, but you might have had people scared for no reason. And when you're trusted as a news source, like some of the listeners that listen to this show, they trust us because we try to take that seriously and giving you accurate information. So when that doesn't happen, it's like, fuck, man, you have to go back and change it. I can't imagine doing that as a journalist. Like, you're overseas.
Like as a legitimate journalist?
Yeah, like a combat journalist, where you're trying to piece together as much as you can quickly and getting out. The fact that they are kind of like NFL referees and they get it right like 98% of the time is remarkable, truly.
Yeah, and I think, too, like, when stuff like this happens, it speaks to, like, you know, you see a lot of military talking heads on these news sites that you look at their credentials afterwards. They're on MSNBC, Fox News, whatever. And it's like, this guy was like an E5. He doesn't have any foreign relations experience. Because I had people coming up to me at the office, genuinely kind of not scared, but concerned, going, Kate, what does this mean? And I was like, I hate to break it to you. I don't fucking know, man. I don't fucking know anything.
Yeah, I mean, World War III was trending on Twitter, and that just incites
to be fair,
such
that
a fear.
Like every
all
other
the
day.
time. But still, like, people put their faith in military people thinking that we know what we're talking about, when I think it's okay sometimes to be like, we don't know yet.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we don't say any of this information is from us, because we don't have any access to intel briefs. We wouldn't know what the fuck they were saying even if we did. So we just go by trusted sources and try to piece it all together for you. That's what we kind of do here. So I want to get into the actual story to explain, as far as we know right now, this is what happened. Kate, walk us through that story.
Yeah, this is from the Associated Press. So, NATO member Poland and the head of the military alliance both said on Wednesday that a missile strike in Polish farmland that killed 2 people appeared to be unintentional and was probably launched by air defenses in Ukraine. Russia had been bombarding Ukraine at the time in an attack that savaged its power grid. Ukraine's defense was launching their missiles in various directions, and it is highly probable that one of these missiles unfortunately fell on Polish territory, said Polish President Andrzej Duda. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, to suggest that it was an intentional attack on Poland. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, at a meeting of the 30-nation military alliance in Brussels, echoed Polish findings. Zelensky, however, disputed them and asked for further investigation. Because obviously, even if it was an accident, it's a very bad look for Ukraine to have accidentally bombed Poland.
And I would say that it doesn't matter that it was a Ukrainian accident, because that Ukrainian accident does not happen without Russian aggression. Russian aggression comes in, they do all that stuff, none of that shit happens. It's like the collateral damage whenever you're having, and I hate to use that term, collateral damage, but if there's a drive-by, even if the person that you killed wasn't your intentional target, you still committed murder. And the drive-by is essentially what Russia is doing. And some of those sprays that come off, the Ukrainians trying to get the missiles in the sky to knock them down and all that shit, and one goes down, to me, that's still Russia's fault, because everything that Ukraine's trying to do from a protection standpoint is affected directly by Russia invading.
Yes. Ultimately, though, like, somebody did fuck up big time.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
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 Still, at the same time, someone in Ukraine
I don't know what
fucked
Poland
up.
does about NJPs, but somebody's getting NJPs.
Yeah. The assessment of Tuesday's deadly missile landing appeared to dial back the likelihood of the strike triggering basically World War III, like we saw on Twitter, in the nearly 9-month-old Russian invasion of Ukraine. If Russia had targeted Poland, that would have risked drawing NATO into the conflict. And I think one of the things that was escalating this World War III talk is that when it was still up in the air, there was press conferences at the Pentagon where our top leaders at the DoD were saying, like, friendly reminder, we have promised to fucking go to town if anybody fucks with NATO. Like, it was kind of...
that's what President Biden said. I think it was at the G12 summit when he said we will defend every inch of NATO territory. And that's why we made the video that I made, because that's a promise from President Biden that they're going to protect Poland. And it's the same type of thing that President Obama said about Crimea. Even though Crimea isn't a member of NATO because it's attached to Ukraine, it's still like an ally in a way. And so whenever President Obama had that red line in the sand, don't cross into Crimea, then they did it, and President Obama essentially did nothing. I don't think President Biden could do nothing, because Poland is actually the chief of all the different protection and the defense agencies in NATO right now. So if they got attacked, that is definitely an attack on NATO. And I think all of those countries would trigger it and fuck Russia up.
Right, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. Like, I think Russia is ridiculous, but I don't think they're so ridiculous. They have their hands full with Ukraine, and that's been broadcast all over the news the last however many months. I don't think they're that stupid that they're like, you know what, we can barely handle Ukraine. Let's get all of NATO involved and try to defend ourselves against all of NATO coming after us at once. I don't think that that's as
There's
possible.
not a country in the world that could do that could survive NATO, like, going after you totally. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's still a ton of speculation. It is remarkable. I want to count how remarkable some of Ukraine, well, it's really our technology. It's said that this week that they fired 90 missiles in one day, and 77 of those were intercepted.
Yeah, Russia fired 90 missiles, and Ukraine intercepted 77,
yes,
yeah.
So they intercepted all those missiles. To me, 77 out of 90 is fucking phenomenal. Like, that's
pretty good hit rate.
Like, that technology is insane. Obviously, you wish it was 90 out of 90, but that didn't happen. Lastly, I don't know what you do if you're Poland in this situation, because you can't. Do you do nothing? Like, 2 of your citizens died. Do you do nothing at all?
Yeah, I would assume, it's pretty much nothing. The head of NATO basically said, like, ultimately Russia bears the responsibility for this, but because it wasn't direct, like, you know, and Zelensky's still kind of denying it, but he said if it truly comes down to it being us, we need to apologize clearly, but I don't think...
And we're probably the last country that can be pointing fingers about collateral damage that you didn't intend. Like,
very true.
That's not exactly our... we're not innocent in that regard by any means.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to round number 2. But before we do that, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, I came across one of the best military acronyms that I have seen in a long time this week. But before we do that, we wanted to go through some of our other favorite acronyms. Kate, what was one of your favorites that you mentioned right off the jump?
Well, are we reading the first one that got you to start this?
No.
The
last.
Oh, sorry. Cons, were you not a major part of ASFART?
Apparently I was.
Assault Forces Artillery? ASFART?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
fun fact, I think ASFART means highway in Germany or something like that. I remember when my high school buddies went to Germany for like exchange trips and stuff, every single one of them would be like, look at this. There was like pictures of the highway sign. They say ASFART, it's a highway.
Oh, because they call it asphalt, right?
I don't know. TURD. Don't forget TURD. Tactical Urinalysis Readiness Detachment.
Yeah, that's those urinalysis folks that they go with you to the field, and as soon as you start, if you get your tent up too fast, then they'll be like, hey, you need to do a piss. You might be on performance-enhancing drugs. It's crazy.
Yes. VULVA, Vital Unit Landing Vehicle Assessment. I had a vital unit landing out of mine. He was beautiful. Poop. Previous operation observation post, scout snipers, after action report. Shart, safe housing, assist renovation teams. We're just stupid idiots.
Yeah, we're just goofing around. But the real one that I saw on Twitter, listen to this one. The defense acronym of the day. The threat environment is cringe. CRINGE. And what they're making that spell out, essentially. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and global extremists.
Whoever came up with cringe for that. Very
Just
good.
Fantastic.
That's
And
from Politico Ryan Heath.
Being a little fast and loose with the acronym by having global extremists. I would have just went extremist in that one. It's a clean E. I mean, but beggars can't be choosers. Anyway, cringe is back on the map. So we say cringe because all the other military reporters and journalists were like, oh, that's so awful. I'm never going to use it. Not me. I'm using cringe as much as I possibly can.
Cringe is fucking up again. Very cringe.
Let's move on to round number 2, which is my special round. Okay. I'm excited because we've talked about plenty of times on this show how much government waste there are. We talked about that submarine that they could use an Xbox controller, but they'll pay $35,000 for something like that.
That study where they had the shrimp on treadmills, which I personally love.
Weird one. They spend all kinds of money on military work and dolphins. They spend money on basically everything. Even a can of Lysol is like $12 on base when you can get it for $3 at Walmart. Just a ridiculous amount of money spent. We all know that the planes are expensive. I think like one of those F-35 is like $25 million or some crazy shit. But the upkeep and just the operational expenses of these planes is remarkable. So I wanted you guys to guess, because there was a nonpartisan group that was talking about government spending and government waste, about how much money we spend training with these planes in the sky. So we're going to go through some of these planes, and you guys got to guess how much, if a plane is in the hour, how much does, or in the sky for an hour, how much does that cost the American taxpayer? The first up. So this plane, A-10 Thunderbolt, if it's in the sky
the one that
for
goes
an hour, that one. How much do you think that cost per hour to be in the sky?
And it's not firing any munitions?
No, just the fuel.
I'm just guessing gas or total cost altogether?
Total cost to be in the sky for an hour.
1.3 million for an hour.
No, that was outrageous. That was kind of like on.
It's the government. I don't know.
The dozen. Whenever the question was, how long ago in days was Avatar released? And Jack Mack said 14,000, which is like 38 years.
Yeah.
I was going to say $50,000.
Okay, the actual one there, the A-10 costs $22,000 per hour. And when you think about like a whole squadron, like they're going up, you're spending 5 pilots are training that day, that's $100,000 that you're spending.
Yeah.
The F-16 goes up from there, $26,000. Now, this is where we really get going with the high dollar marks. The F-22 Raptor, which many say is the most complete and best fighter jet in the world, how much do you think that one costs? Knowing that the A-10 is $22,000, how much do you think the F-22 Raptor costs?
Say double the coolness, 44.
Okay.
I was going to say a cool $250,000.
Close. It's $85,000 an hour.
Wow.
To have the F.
God, I'd feel like such a badass flying that thing, knowing that. I wish I could see a little like pop-up video price number going as I flew.
Oh yeah, get the knots out of here. I don't care how fast I'm going. I want that little money thing, like we have whenever we do Cyber Monday at Barstool. Like a little thermometer thing that goes up. That's what I want.
Real quickly, sorry, Kate, you mentioned pop-up video. I always thought it would be cool if when you're walking on the street, if you could just see a pop-up video to see what somebody is listening to as you pass them on the street.
Oh yeah.
And I think you'd be surprised each and every time because it would never match up with
Isn't that what they're trying to do with Google Glass? Like if you have your thing on, you could see like above people, like that was the original Google Glass invention that they used to have commercials about, where you could be walking into a store and on your glasses it would be like, how much does this cost? How much does that cost? And your glasses like scan everything essentially.
They should
Like
have
Google
Google Glass
Terrifying.
Google Glass for joint military bases that tells you what rank somebody is, so you're
Yeah.
not confused. It just
So if you're an
turns
Army
green
guy-
if you're supposed to salute.
Right, you're an Army person, you come across a Navy chief, when in doubt, whip it out. That's what
Yeah.
they always said back in the day. All right, the next category of planes, this one is like the ones that are nuclear capable or have high stealth capabilities.
Okay.
Like the B-52s, the B-2s of the world, the B-1s, like those types of planes that are able to go undetected, super high in altitude and things like that. The B-52 Stratofortress, how much do you think that one cost in the air per hour?
I'm saying that's got to be more than the F-22 on a fuel standpoint alone. So that one, I'll say 100,000.
Okay.
I'd say the air is thinner, so it's kind of floating like a balloon up there. I don't understand science. I'm going to say 12.
Yeah, that's how aviation
I'm
works.
going to say 20,000.
No, that one's $88,354
Holy shit.
per hour.
Okay.
The highest one in that category is the B-1B Lancer. That one cost $173,000 an hour that it's in the air.
I think the thing that sucks too is like, well, then just don't use them until you need to. But it's like, no, these pilots
You gotta
have
train.
to train. They have
Yeah.
to fly them. They have to train and rack up a certain
And
amount
you
of
can't
hours. Yeah.
can't tell me that they can just do all their training in simulators
Right.
either.
Yeah.
because you
No, it's
cannot
got to be the
simulate.
real thing for
You
sure.
know what this kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of people when they come super rich and they've never been around super rich people in their life. They've never been in places that they have super rich people, and then they buy a yacht for like $5 million. And you think, okay, I bought this yacht for $5 million. That's it. No, that thing costs you like $500,000 per year in upkeep alone, like
Yeah.
to do all those different things. That's what these planes are. We buy them for $22 million, and then you got to pay $100,000 per hour to get them on. The cheap boys of the group is the helicopters. The helicopters.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, the
You'd think a lot
Apache.
more spinny stuff going on, a lot more
Yeah,
work.
you would think that would cost more gas, but it absolutely
Yeah, spinning
doesn't.
stuff. That's
Yeah.
actually the technical term.
Yeah,
It
all
is
those
a
damn
technical
spinnies
term.
on that thing.
Yeah, there's too many spinnies. The Apache's only $5,171 an hour.
Hey, look at the
Look
Army
at the
being
Basically
Apache.
like
economical.
Uber. That's like an Uber.
Seriously.
I could fly that to LaGuardia if I wanted to skip traffic.
I honest
could
to
not.
God think I've paid more leaving a Jets game for surge pricing on Uber than that cost for a
Yeah.
Apache to be in the sky.
That
Very
checks out,
cool.
yeah.
So, but the super fancy helicopters, the Viper, $20,000 an hour. Now we're gonna go into a different category, and it's the less category. This is specialized military aircraft. One of them is called the E-3 Sentry, which I believe is a reconnaissance plane. That it'll go around looking for enemies, submarines, and shit like that.
I'm
How
so
much do you think-
nosy. I would fucking love to
Oh, yeah.
just be watching the video screen of that. I know it's wrong and some, but to
I mean,
just
imagine the things you could see through buildings, right?
forget it.
It's like X-ray vision on 1,000 million levels.
Yeah, I would love. Anyway, sorry.
So this one, the E-3 Sentry, 66 grand an hour to be in the sky.
Okay.
Now,
Wait, what?
66 grand.
But I would think it would be less because they're not powered by fuel? Aren't those electric?
I don't think so. The E-3
No?
Sentry? No,
I have no idea what an E3 Sentry
No,
I
I
don't
don't
either,
even know
but
what
I
it
don't
looks
think it's
like.
electric. I think that would be a
Wait.
first of its kind. Like to
It's
be
like-
that big.
Oh, wait.
I've seen military stuff fly overhead, like at the Army Navy game, and people are like, "Kate, what is that?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know,
Oh.
man. Stolen Valor, Katie again. I don't know what these fucking
Sorry.
things are."
No, I have
I
no idea.
just Googled it. It's the big
Yeah.
one that has like the big radar thing on top of it.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
Oh
I
yeah,
understand.
that ridiculous ass plane.
I've
Yeah.
been
yes.
in planes and helicopters and all sorts of things that as I'm in it, I'm like, I don't know what I'm in right now. I don't fucking know. I just do what I'm
Yeah,
told.
when people ask me what kind of helicopters do you ride in, I was like, I
I
don't
don't
know, the
fucking
one
know.
with the fucking whirly
The
thing
spinner
on top.
thing on
the
top.
spinny thing on the
Yep.
top. Yeah. The last plane that we'll go over, this one blew my fucking mind. This is insane. So there's a specialized military aircraft, and they tend to be very expensive. That's what the article says. The E-3 Sentry, which acts as a flying radar system and airborne battle command post, costs $66,000 an hour to fly. But The small fleet of R-635 reconnaissance aircraft cost $95. Now, the E-4 Bravo National Security Airborne Operations Center, that's the last one. It's an aircraft that Boeing designed. It's in a 747-200 airliner. It costs a staggering $372 an hour to fly,
Wait.
or $103 per second.
$372,000 an hour.
$372,000.
Holy shit balls.
Wow.
Whew.
Wow.
That's fucking
That's
nuts.
That's your
By the
tax
way-
money at work. All right.
I just wanted on record, when you said reconnaissance, I thought it was a drone, and that's what I thought. Because aren't our
Yeah.
drones electric?
Some of them.
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah.
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 Okay. All right.
For sure. And a lot of them, there's one drone, we've talked about it before, I think. That one drone that stayed in the air for a year. Like, it didn't come down for a year because it is able to kind of fly like a Concorde does.
What?
Like, not the Concorde plane.
Is it
Yeah, look
solar
it up.
powered?
Concord bird.
No,
Solar
it
powered?
just goes on the wind, and it somehow like knows how to adjust its wings and things like that,
That's
where
so
it can
cool.
stay up in the air perpetually. And they said even when it came down for a year, that it could have stayed up there for essentially forever in how it's designed.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
All
think
right.
about
That's
all
awesome.
the weather that it like that high. How much weather it goes in? Like the cold. I guess it's always going to be cold that high. It's just cold. Yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
it. You're not going to have super heat. All right, let's move on to round number 3. What do we got here, Kate?
Okay, so this comes to us from cnet.com. I've always had a weird little voice in my head. So this is a...
This is a guy that's telling about his process over the last year.
Yeah, it's not necessarily an evil voice. It's not convincing me to commit murder or rob banks. No, this voice is mostly about making me do stupid stuff. When I was a kid, it might say something like, bet you can't run to that point in the horizon without stopping, or bet you can't backflip off that precious ledge, or that precarious ledge. We all have inner voices, but my bet you can't voice has been part of my makeup for as long as I can remember, and on balance, it's a net positive. Usually it's forcing me to eat well and exercise. Today, at age 41, I'm mostly fit and healthy. Who the fuck is this guy? I hate this
Right.
guy.
Do you guys have anything like that in your life where you've been like, I know this isn't probably the smartest thing, but I'm gonna fucking do it just because I want to do it?
My
Cons?
tramp
Yes.
stamp, the time that
yeah.
undercover cop told me to throw the 40 ounce and I did it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my whole life is shaped by that voice. Doing dumb shit.
Yeah, the first time I ran the New York City Marathon, first time I did a Tough Mudder, I was screwing around not doing anything in Iraq one day. I was like, you should get yourself ordained. So I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finally decided to shave the head. it was
Oh,
just
yeah.
Just do it.
Yep.
Just do it. Finally overcame that fear.
Kate, you also did it with kitchen shears.
Yeah, kitchen shears, drinking and smoking on birth control. Just saying, it'll work out.
Oh, you're not supposed to drink and smoke when you're
Wait.
on birth control? That
It
affects
doesn't help. Smoking, I don't think, helps, and not taking it at the same time every day, turns out.
Oh. Well, this
Anyway.
fella took that whole thing to a new level that would make me furious if I was around him on a daily basis.
Yeah, so his brain would say, bet you can't run a marathon, or bet you can't learn a second language, bet you can't quit drinking soft drinks. Most of the time, this voice is my friend, but sometimes it leads me astray. Once it had me doing a sleep experiment that sent my mind into meltdown. That's probably the worst thing the little voice told me to do. The second worst, cold showers. Please allow me to tell you why I've been taking nothing but cold showers for the entirety of 2022, and this is him speaking. It was the tail end of 2021. My wife and I had family staying over for Christmas, 20 people all up. We had fun, we made merry, but there were issues, logistics, only 2 showers, one inside, normal hot water, and then one that only had access to cold water, an outdoor shower. Other studies reported, so he saw studies that saying, but guess what? Like, go ahead, take the cold shower. It boosts your immune system, improved recovery post-exercise because of reduced inflammation. Because
And we're seeing this is very popular in fitness groups now where you have like a cold tub outside your house. Like Rogan does it and those kind of guys where they'll have...
I used to play D2
Yeah.
field hockey,
like
and
ice
after
and all
every
that
practice,
shit. Yeah.
for just
Like
field
cold
hockey,
tubs.
we'd be
Right.
getting in the cold tubs.
Yeah, that's not new.
And even I, actually, before this article came out, a couple months ago, I was spiraling down again. And so I decided to start taking cold showers. I just saw it online that it helps with depression or whatever. And I was like, fuck it, I'll try it.
And whenever you're in that stage of like super depression, I know I've been there too. When if you could stack some wins, like even if you get out of the shower and you feel a little bit invigorated, and that kind of shocks your mind. And it's one thing that I've talked about in therapy a lot, is that coping skill of just shocking your system. My therapist has even recommended for this type of thing, where if you're feeling really depressed and you don't have time to take a shower, you could just get like a salad bowl, fill it with ice and water, and dunk your face in it, and it essentially does the same thing.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of health benefits that they've said about that. But let's keep going through the story.
Yeah, this guy goes on to say, like, kind of details what the cold showers were like, and that they were fucking freezing. He'd get naked, stand in the cold spraying water, reflect on his life choices a little bit, and then you have to make the choice. Like, fuck, this sucks, but I'm going to make the choice to get in the cold water. He would get in there, make grunts like, for like 20 seconds, turn around, get your taint in there, get your taint nice and cold. And then afterwards...
So he basically says that he does all this stuff, that he goes through a year and that he lived in a warm climate, and then he goes to New York and he stays in a hotel, and he said it was like torture, like needles all over his body whenever he got in there. I say all that to ask you guys, how much would somebody have to pay you living in New York to go cold showers only for an entire year?
So I'll tell you this. There was this great, I forget who wrote the article, but there was a man, I think he worked at a car dealership in Atlantic City, and he became really miserable with his life. Like, he was stuck in a rut. It was the same thing every day. And he's like, I need to do something drastic to make some kind of change in my life. So he made this pledge to himself that every day for an entire year, he was going to go swim in the Atlantic Ocean. Even if it was blizzarding, if there was a hurricane or nor'easter, every day he was going to get up early and go swim in the Atlantic Ocean. And the story followed, like, he starts out in the summertime and he's like, this is amazing, and follows him through to the fall where he's like, this is starting to suck. He got a wetsuit still, like a warm wetsuit, but by the winter time, there's photos of him through the snow in a nor'easter, getting his head under, swimming with the waves. And by the end of it, he said ultimately it was really good. It did get him out of the rut that he was in, doing something completely outside his norm, outside his comfort zone every day, that he made connections and friends through it, and like blah, blah, blah. Doing something like that, I get. And like the cold swimming there, I get. Doing it alone in your cold shower, I don't so much. You're not out in nature. No one else knows you're doing it. It's fucking freezing.
You're just in your house. Like, I could see doing it a couple times, but then you're right, Kate. You got to step it up. It's like eventually you got to go higher than Natty Light, like, because Natty Light's not going to make you buzzing anymore. So you move on to something different.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how you got to be in this situation when you go. There is no my price point to do that every day, probably $200,000. I think it would just...
Oh, I was going to go higher than that. I was going to
just
say
be
$1 million.
miserable.
I could
Yeah,
do
I
it
was
for
gonna say
like an
$1 million.
A10 Warthog hourly rate. I could probably do it.
Part of the other thing, quite honestly, and I kind of experienced this a little bit at one point in my life, when you only have cold water, you don't get as clean. And that's not me, that's just science. Your pores don't open up, so you can't get as clean. So that would bother me more so than because anybody who's done cold pools, Kate, after athletics, you know that after the first minute, you just go numb and it stops hurting.
Yeah,
It hurts for that first minute and then you're done. It's fine. But if I don't feel clean after getting out of the shower, that would annoy me more than anything. So it wouldn't be so much enduring the cold shower as it would feeling gross all the time.
Yeah.
So
Do you
that's
think
why
it
I
would
would need
flip?
more money.
Like, when it's normally cold and you get out of the hot shower, you feel cold as fuck as soon as you get out of there. Do you think it would switch? Like, if you were super cold, taking a cold shower, and then you had like a warm towel getting out, where you would feel warmer instantly?
Oh,
That'd be
those
so
rich
great.
people that have the towel racks that warm the towel. Oh my God, forget it.
Yeah,
Yes,
we have a little bucket in our pool house that we do it for the jacuzzi. It's nice.
I will say for the week that I did it, it was nice getting out. I had this big fluffy robe, and like getting toasty right after was nice. But
Yeah.
it's like I could have just had that in the shower if I had fucking warm water on. I don't
Or
know.
stay toasted the whole time.
Yeah.
I get it though, like in terms of wanting to do something every day. Like I've
Yes.
told you guys, and I've said on the show before now with the iOS update, it has the new fitness app, and I'm obsessed with closing my circles every day and making sure I close my circle to the point where it'll be 10 o'clock at night. I'll check, like, oh crap, and then I'll go outside and walk around the block a few times.
Yeah.
Alex will get furious about it, but I have to close the circle.
That's what I've been thinking about, because I'm always talking about getting these like ruts and like how do you get out of it, and I'm a person that needs like extremes. And I've been thinking about, this just popped in my head, I didn't read anything about it, but I was thinking about, what if I just started walking 5 miles every night? And I've been thinking about doing it. The only downside as a lady is getting murdered. So
Yeah.
I feel like, but
That's
It's a
trouble.
little
Some-
dangerous.
I
It's
love
dangerous.
hiking, and I love, even in the cold, I feel like it'd be a really good thing because I don't run anymore. My joints are too rickety. I don't know. If anybody out there has a thing that they suddenly started doing that made a difference for them, I'd be interested to hear it. Anything physical that got you out of rut. In the long story, this guy says, I didn't notice. I did this for a fucking year. I didn't notice any benefits. I just fucking hated it.
Yeah, that's the
So,
saddest part. And that's the
sad
reason
part.
why I wanted to talk about
Yeah.
it. Like, you get to the bottom. He's like, I went through all this shit, and it really didn't do anything for me, like, at all.
Yeah.
But I think something like Kate is talking about would be incredibly beneficial because so much research has gone into staying active. Even I've made my therapist ask me, she was like, you stay in your office, it's dark in there, you're by yourself. She was like, just go outside and sit on your bench in the backyard for like an hour, for 30 minutes, and read a book or listen to music or whatever, but just be outside. I've been doing that for like 3 weeks or so outside of the time that I was in New York. It's fucking lovely, man.
Yeah.
Like, just being outside and getting that vitamin D, it's just nice.
Yeah, Kate, one thing I would suggest, and it's something I want to get back into, I used to do it with Barstool, and I've done it outside of Barstool too, having a midweek sport to go do, whether
Yeah.
it's softball, kickball,
Bocce ball.
bocce, something that's active. I would say a little bit more active. I love bocce, but it's not that active. You just kind
I
of
did indoor bocce when I was in Queens. That was a huge turnaround for me. I finally made
Yeah.
friends in my neighborhood. It was awesome. It was a great social thing.
Yeah, I mean, I joke about it with Alex, but I mean, golf is a huge thing for me. For
Well,
that
I was
exact
doing,
reason.
guys, started doing this hot yoga that I was getting into in town, and now I think it's a cult.
When? How did you not tell us about that?
Well, I
Yeah,
think
really.
it's a cult now. Now this man
Yeah.
who he calls himself Dr. Scott. He's taken over the Instagram account.
Nick said it is a Scott.
Nick, if you know
It is
which
a
one I'm
cult.
talking about, I don't want to like call it by name. This guy, and he's always wearing like a Speedo with a super hairy chest, and all his photos are of him like moving women's legs around and stuff. And he's like starting to come.
That's a cult.
He's starting to come talk about like the inner mind and bettering your whatever. And I'm like, I don't
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. I don't
That's a
like
big
that.
one.
Next
I-
thing you know, he's going to be talking about the medicinal benefits of drinking your own piss. Like, you just
Yeah.
know he is.
I know, so I feel a little weird about this sweaty, hairy man who appeared and is getting weird.
This ends up with you all drinking a glass of Kool-Aid and never seeing you.
Because
again.
if anybody
Yeah.
here would get into a cult, it's for sure
you-
me.
I read
Yeah.
the other day that cult story that everybody knows Kool-Aid never happened. It's a urban legend.
No, that
What, the gym? That
no,
happened.
that
No, but it's not Kool-Aid. The
It's
way
not
that
Kool-Aid,
they killed,
but they-
it was like a cyanide pill. Like they didn't.
Yeah.
They.
Oh, there
didn't
was a
take-
drink.
Yeah, but was it?
It was a drink.
No, it was Jim Jones. Yeah, because it's funny. My uncle used to say they would back when he was in college they would have Jim Jones parties with Jungle Juice because
Oof.
that was the joke.
I guess you got to do dark humor to go
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it.
See.
By
All
the
right,
way,
Okay.
it was Kool-Aid laced with cyanide.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then that report that I saw is completely wrong. I got bamboozled twice this week. Once with Russia and Poland, and this one. I think the Russia-Poland one's probably bigger. Like, I think that's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
a bigger
Nah.
deal. Seeing that the Jim Jones ones happened, I think, like in the late 80s, late 70s, or
Yeah.
early 80s, or
Some-
something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And yes, Nick is in a cult. It's called CrossFit.
Right.
CrossFit's a cult.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't remember that because I do have a traumatic brain injury. So let's move on to round number 4, where Kate's going to talk to somebody that there is some good information in the traumatic brain injury world. Here's that interview.
Now on Zero Blog 30, I am joined by the congressional reporter at military.com, Rebecca Kheel, about an article that you wrote along with Patricia Kine about, we talk about suicide in the military. It almost feels kind of cliche at this point. There's the 22 push-up challenge, and we're always encouraging people on the show, reach out to your buddies. And we talk about gun locks and this and that and all these different things. But at the end of the day, like, it's to the point where sometimes I feel like I don't want to talk about it anymore because I don't want to perpetuate some kind of stigma. At the end of the day, though, like the numbers are staggering and really tough to look at. This is a real thing. This is happening. And this article that you wrote at military.com is shining the light now on one of the major reasons that might be.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah.
It's great to be here. And I should also give a shout out to Patricia. She was an awesome partner on this project and got some of the really great anecdotes in that story. But yeah, like you said, the numbers are staggering. So what we really set out to do was to answer the question, why? And, you see officials over the last 20 years at VA, DOD, etc., have really been casting it as somewhat of a mystery. And I should caveat that, experts in suicide say it's a very complex issue. There is no one cause, but there does appear to be this growing body of research that is pointing to traumatic brain injuries as a driving factor. And, traumatic brain injuries have been called the signature wound of the post 9/11 wars. And we see this sort of rise in both the numbers of suicides of post 9/11 veterans and these hundreds of thousands of traumatic brain injuries that that service members have suffered in these wars. So there was sorry.
Well, it's okay. You talk about the story of Army Specialist Daniel Williams, who in the mid 2000s, he's deployed to Iraq. He's losing his buddies. He too is involved in an IED blast. Comes home. I mean, I encourage everyone to read the article to see the full story. Takes him years to get the help that he's needed, even several years after a suicide attempt, a very dramatic, very painful suicide attempt that, thank God, didn't pan out and he survived. But finally, 3 years after that, they do a scan of his brain and
Sorry, just give me a second.
No, that's okay.
So what they found in these images, pretty much as clear as day, were white spots of decay across his otherwise intact brain. And that was a clear sign that he had suffered traumatic brain injury. And one of the difficulties that we've found that we'll be exploring more in subsequent articles on this issue is that a lot of symptoms of TBI are similar to PTSD, which is considered another signature wound of these wars. So it has been difficult for people like
Williams, you're talking about, like, Williams was misdiagnosed 2 times before he got to this final diagnosis. First, it was like failure to adapt kind of thing. And then it was PTSD. And then they did the brain scan and they said, oh, you're like, not to put it in a gross way, but your brain looks like Swiss cheese. There's so much damage in there from the blast. And he said, finally, it made sense to him. He had been having these lapses in his memory. He felt like he could not control his mood anymore. And it made him feel like he was going crazy and losing it, when really, like, there was an actual physical reason in his brain why this was happening. And even though it's tough to get diagnoses like that, it's probably also such a huge relief for veterans who were wondering, like, why the F is this happening to me? Like, what is happening in my brain?
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, Specialist Williams had that exact feeling, that it was such a relief when he finally got that diagnosis and had an explanation for what was happening to him.
And can we talk about, because you were saying this is a big deal, because do you know about how common are TBI injuries among post 9/11 military members? Because this was the first war where, like, the enemy's main weapon a lot of the times was bombs, was IEDs. This was a whole new way of war for us.
Yeah, there have been about 460,000 TBIs diagnosed in service members, in post 9/11 service members. Most of them are classified as, quote, mild TBI, which more commonly we refer to as a concussion. But even a concussion is a serious injury, as you see in other fields like football, for example. But yeah, you mentioned IEDs. That was, of course, a big cause of them. These weapons were targeting our service members. The other side of that is that medicine has gotten better. So whereas before a service member might have died from those blasts, they're surviving, but now we're finding they have injuries that are affecting them years later.
And it's not just suicide. Like you said, TBI makes you at higher risk for Alzheimer's, at higher risk for, what are some of the other things? Dementia, death by homicide, accidents, suicide. It's more than just suicide, because it changes the impulsivity of your actions. Sometimes it really does mess with your brain. So now I saw that epidemiologist, I'm probably butchering that, Jeff Howard, he sought out to find, like, why are so many post 9/11 vets dying prematurely for all these reasons not involving combat? And like I said, it's not just suicide, like homicide, accidents, all these things. And he found that TBI was the root cause of this stuff. Like, so now what?
That is the question. The Howard study was the impetus for this series, pretty much, because the numbers that he found were so staggering. I mean, in terms of just TBI, as you mentioned, there are excess death rates for other,
No, that's
as you
okay.
mentioned, there are excess death rates. Mild TBI were found to have 3 times higher than the general population suicides. Those with moderate to severe brain injuries were 5 times more likely to die by suicide. So just really staggering statistics there. And that did back up previous research on this issue, in the general population that also found that those with TBI had higher rates of suicide. So that really is the question, is now that we have this information, what do we do about it? And the hope is that now that there is growing evidence that TBI is a cause of suicide, that you can look at the suicide issue from that perspective and say, okay, how do we treat TBI? And hopefully that will drive the suicide rate down.
Right. And I'm just wondering too, like, I know my buddy Chaps, my co-host on the show, has traumatic brain injury from his time in service. And I don't know if he's ever gotten a brain scan. Like, will the VA say, hey, if you have a documented TBI, you can get a brain scan out? Because if that was me and I was struggling mentally with certain things, I'd really want to know, like, man, because like we said in the beginning of the show, for that soldier, like, it is a relief to know, oh God, it's more than, like, it's actually like a real physical thing in my brain. Like, has the VA spoken out about this and said, like, we're going to be doing more scans of TBI patients? Like, I'm curious just to hear what their response to this is too. Like, have they reached out about the article or anything?
I don't think they've reached out about the article specifically. We do have a couple more parts coming up where we are exploring, the what next type question and what the VA's plan is. So we'll cover that more in depth in our future articles.
Okay. And then, so this Jeffrey Howard, who was going to find out why so many post 9/11 vets were dying prematurely and everything, like, was he associated, like, was the VA also doing their own research into this? Because I feel like this is a big deal. Like, do you know, were they also looking into it?
Yeah, there have been VA studies related to this. There was particularly a 2018 study done by VA researchers that found that Iraq and Afghanistan veterans with multiple TBIs were twice as likely to report suicidal ideations than veterans with 1 or no head injuries. That tracks with another 2013 study that was not conducted by the VA, but that did look at service members that found that those with multiple TBIs were more likely to experience suicidal thoughts. So there have been studies on this previously, but the scientific process is that the more studies there are that confirm it, the more likely it is to be true, I guess.
And the more likely to actually get funding for it, which is
always
such a crapshoot.
Exactly. And like I said, the results from Howard's study were just so staggering. It really kind of put the issue into a sharp focus.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to read the follow-up articles, and I'm interested to see what the plan of attack for this is going to be moving forwards. And, thinking too, you're talking about people with more than 1 TBI, especially. Well, so many of these people deployed time and time and time and time again. And there's people you talk about who they were injured in this deployment, and then the next one they were injured even worse, and then in the next one, and they just kept still getting sent right back. Yeah. And then, you talk about the family members who are the wives, the kids who are at home dealing with this person they don't recognize anymore. And it's like, so I'm glad that you're shining light on this and that more research is being done, because it's going to be such a huge relief for people when there's like a plan of care that finally comes out of this. I hope that soon.
Yeah, same. I hope we can make an impact with this article. That's always the hope.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say about it? Anything else that really stood out to you as you were doing your research for this, or?
I think we pretty much covered it. You mentioned how service members got injured again and again. And I think one of the things that I was kind of curious about when I was researching was how many exactly suffered multiple TBIs. And that is actually not in any official data. So that was kind of interesting to me, especially since there were these studies that show that TBI, the compound, and you're more likely to have these suicidal ideations if you have multiple TBIs.
And you think too, like just thinking about the guys on my first deployment, I was attached to 2 infantry units, and shit would happen and they wouldn't seek medical care. Like big deal stuff would happen and it doesn't get reported. I'm fine. Let me go back out with my buddies. Let me do whatever. So there's also a huge amount that's probably just not documented at all. Maybe only one of their 3 TBI incidents, or none of several, or,
Yeah. And that is what the second article in the series is actually going to explore, is how we got to the point where so many service members have TBI. And there was this slow realization, both among leadership and the rank and file, that it was a serious thing that you need to seek medical attention for and rest afterwards. So we'll be looking more into that as well.
Really interesting. And especially too, like I'm sure you're hearing this too, but people who don't follow the military but follow the NFL, like that's become a huge issue there too. And reading the news stories, you can see it playing out. Like the things that come from this, like it is a huge deal that I think anybody can see and recognize. So really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. I look forward to the following articles coming out on it. Military.com. They said the rise in military suicide is a mystery. Traumatic brain injury may be an answer, by Rebecca Kheel and Patricia Kimes. So thank you so much. Again, everybody go check it out. Thanks again to Rebecca for coming on. And I look forward to seeing what changes this yields. Especially, I hope the VA is keeping close tabs on that shit. That's all I can say. So.
Hopefully that's the next thing. Got burn pits taken out of, that's taken care of, which affects the most veterans from this conflict that we are all in, the 20-year war. And I think that traumatic brain injury and PTSD are the next thing that we really need to tackle for sure.
Credit to the VA. It seems like they're going in a good direction.
Yeah, they're trying. I think not even just this administration. I think that there's been, since Obama's administration, really, there's been an uptick in the care that veterans are having, and hopefully
Well, because we're pushing them to try, not us.
We are.
Other groups.
But they're obliged. They've been pushed forever. They've been pushed forever, just said, fuck you guys. But I think the biggest difference between now and the Vietnam veterans getting what they deserved, the difference is social media. Without question, it's social media. Because they didn't have that rallying point. They didn't have the Save Our Allies. They didn't have the burn pits, like all those different hashtags where people are paying attention. None of that shit happened in Vietnam. I don't think that we get this. Absolutely, the PACT Act doesn't get passed without social media. No doubt in my mind. It would never happen. Let's move on to save rounds and alibis. Nick, we'll start with you. Today's show is also brought to you by our good friends at Roman. 42% of men experience moderate to extensive hair loss in their lifetime. I mean, if you've seen me in cons, you know, we should have had this product a long time ago. Maybe we wouldn't be in the situation I am. Look closely. Look closely into the camera if you're on YouTube. You see there's hair in some spots. There's not hair in some other spots. I got like a little runway. I look like absolute dog shit when my hair starts growing out because I didn't use this product. You don't have to make that mistake because Roman offers both prescription medication and over-the-counter treatments. They also have a special formulated shampoo and conditioner. Research shows that 80% of men who use the prescription hair loss treatment and no further hair loss after 2 years. That's pretty incredible. When you think about like how many dudes, 42%, struggle with that, to be able to basically stop it at 80% folks have it stopped is incredible. Getting started is simple. a completely free online visit. Then a U.S. licensed healthcare professional will work with you to find the best treatment. If medication is appropriate, Roman ships it directly to you in a discreet package with free 2-day shipping, which is very fast when you're not dealing with Amazon Prime. And the whole process is straightforward and discreet. Treatments start at $20 per month on a quarterly plan. Right now, Roman has a special offer for our listeners. Go to ro.co/ZBT to get 20% off your order. Again, that's ro.co, Romeo Oscar Charlie Oscar/ZBT for 20% off.
None from me. Just please subscribe to the YouTube and make sure you're listening on audio as well. Thank you.
Cons?
Yeah, 2 things. Or actually 3. Yeah, definitely go check out the YouTube. Number 2, I was watching on YouTube the foreplay guys and watching. I'm trying to keep up with Trent, trying to break 90 over there on the foreplay, and they were
Breaks
talking
my
about.
heart.
Yeah, it's tough, but I love it. It's a great series. They were in the last episode talking about how like Candy doesn't sponsor anybody at Barstool, and they had a Toblerone bar, and it just reminded me. Toblerone, when I was on my way home for good from Iraq, and we were stopping over in Germany, I was like, I eat some authentic chocolate here. And I ended up with a Toblerone, which is neither authentic to Germany or old for that matter.
Guns.
But it just reminded me.
Swear to God, I have a photo of myself. I just looked at it because I was trying to find my best Veterans Day photo to post on social media. And it's me on a plane to Afghanistan after our layover in Germany. And I bought the mega triangle of Toblerone, like the 5-pounder. And I said to my seatmate next to me, I was like, who knows what's going to happen on this deployment? I'm going to eat this entire fucking log before we land. I said, I don't care if I get diarrhea on this plane.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
I did.
That's in the back of a C-17 fucking military plane, not in a normal seat. Is that how you went? Did
Well,
you go
then
in a
there's
military
photos
plane?
where I'm eating there's a series of photos where I eat the whole fucking thing. And I'm like,
for
check
you.
this out. And it became a thing with people sitting around me were like, she's going to finish it. I fucking did.
Yeah.
Were you on a regular plane or on a
Yeah, this
military
was the
plane?
regular one before Kyrgyzstan.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So
it was
dog
fine.
handlers we weren't allowed to take, though. So we
Right.
had to go from, like, Cherry Point, North Carolina to, I think,
Oh, you had to
Germany.
go the whole way in a military
And
plane.
dogs can't
Dude.
eat Toblerone bars.
No,
Sad,
they can't.
sad.
And I don't know if you guys have been in one of those C-17s going on a long distance.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
cold
Yeah.
as shit.
And loud. And back then,
Loud as
headphones weren't
fuck,
good.
And there's no toilets.
Yep.
So that's why Kate doing that would have been braver than the U.S. Marines himself.
No, I had a
She would have
toilet.
eaten
I had
it.
a toilet.
Toblerone. I've never had a Toblerone. What is it? Is it like nougat?
Oh, buddy.
Never
oh,
had
my
it.
God.
It's too rich for
Go-
my blood. I'm more of a payday kind of guy.
Stop. The
I like
way it...
mayonnaise and almond joys. Whatchamacallits and caramellos.
Hey, Toblerone, if you're listening, we're ready for that sponsorship.
Please.
I might go
Bob,
pick one up. I gotta go to Walgreens and
you
get
should.
my medicine. Anything. I might pick one up.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Chaps, please.
Please get one. Give a review on our Instagram. So subscribe to ZeroBuck30
Yeah.
on Instagram. And then lastly, Nick might have seen this. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Derek Jeter put his mansion up. It's like 50 miles
castle.
north of. Yeah, it's a castle. He put it up for sale in New York. I think here's my next idea. I think we buy that ZBT via Barstool. I don't know where we're getting the money. We'll find it, and we make that like a veterans retreat.
I think
Okay,
that's a
sure.
terrible idea too. Because we can't even get them to make like a polo with our logo on it. They ain't giving us $50 million. Like that shit ain't happening at all. No chance. And they're not doing that because you fuckers that are listening don't go buy our shit. So go to
seriously.
shop.barstoolsports.com, search ZeroBlock30. We got the Good Initiative Bad Judgment hoodie. We got all kinds of new stuff. We're gonna have stuff that drops for Black Friday. Go help us out, please. Our children are starving.
Cons is going to come out with a bad initiative, bad judgment.
Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be a good idea.
Yeah,
I like
that would
that.
His
But
next
listen,
hoodie.
if you all go buy our stuff, then we can do a polo with the pirate dog. And I
Yeah,
know a
that's
lot of
what we
people have been
really
asking for
want.
a polo with a pirate dog. Well, you got to go buy our stuff that we got, and then we can do that. And that's all I got. Thank you.
I will say
Catherine?
one thing you are all amazing at, Brian, our merch or not, is that GoFundMe for the Gladwin vets outside Philly is up to $48,355 of their $50,000 goal. And that's not including the match that Dave's doing. So holy fuck, you guys. Thank you. And I wanted to give a special shout out to, they're on Instagram at We Are Team Foster. And they're a 501c3 who raises money to provide service dogs to injured veterans at no charge in honor of Captain Eric Foster. and it's Philly area. They reached out to me and were like, we want to donate $2,500. They need money for their own thing, and here they are saying, we want to help this local veterans organization, this Gladwin Vets. So they donated $2,500 of their own money to it.
That's awesome.
And they put up a post about it. You can follow them on Instagram at We Are Team Foster. I know we're going to have a spot at the Army-Navy game. They are also going to have a really good tailgate in Lot G at the Army-Navy game. So check out their site, check out their page. Really, really good-hearted, awesome group, 501c3. So if you're in the Philly area especially, I just wanted to give them a lot of love and a shout-out.
All right.
That's my safe round.
I have an announcement to make, and I don't do this lightly, and I don't do it without a heavy heart, honestly. So I need to preemptively apologize to the listener, because on December 3rd, I will be running. I will have to run. I'm going to run.
Whoa.
I'm doing the Patrol Base Abate Memorial workout of the day that they're going to have. And it's going to consist of 1 mile run. Then you do, I think it's clean, either cleans or jerks that are with 115 or 155. Your boy's going with the 115. It's been a while. Then you have to run 800 meters. Then you come back and you do the same thing again with the cleans or hang cleans, whatever it is. And then you run a mile again. So I haven't ran in, I believe, let's see, I got out in 2012 or 13. So 10 years, basically, I haven't ran. I'm going to be so broke off. It's going to be ridiculous.
I have a question. Are you doing this like in your yard?
I'm going to do it in my neighborhood, yeah.
Is someone going to be filming it for my enjoyment?
I don't know if somebody will film it,
Yes.
but
Please set something up. Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
new
it's gonna
cult.
be-
New cult alert.
it's going to be fucking rough, and I'm not going to enjoy it. I don't know where I'm going to get the like the clean bar. I don't know where I'm going to get all that shit. I think I have some dumbbells. Maybe I'll have to do modified, but either way, I'm not looking forward to it, but it's for a good cause. It's for an organization that I care about, Patrol Base Abate. If you want to do it with me, I'll post this shit on my Instagram and Uncle Chaps, and maybe even on ours, so you could check it out. If you want to do it with me, that would be awesome. The whole squad could do it. So if you want to post some of your shit on Instagram, if you end up doing it, we'll post that too and repost it and all that kind of stuff. It would be awesome to do. I'm looking forward to it. I've really enjoyed that group. I've been a book club with them where we're going over different books and meeting about it. So if you're interested in that, hit me up and I'll give you the information there. Other than that, again, thanks to everybody for the feedback about Captain Konz's interview with Mike Krzyzewski. It went really great. Even Big Cat wasn't mad the way that it turned out. So we appreciate you guys listening to that. And we'll be back here next week. Are we? Do we do one next week?
Yeah, one episode.
One episode next week. We'll have the Tuesday episode. Oh, follow it. And so
Excuse me.
God, have some discipline.
Yeah, undisciplined Katie. All right, that's it. Sound the retreat.